joined back together to fight the war against dysfunction as we do each and every day. Part of the way you do that is you call me and we get to talk about it. So let me give the number out real quickly here. In the beginning, 844-940-2774, 844-940-2774 to get on the air with your question. I always want to thank our callers because you do give us stuff to think about that we can all identify with. Because if you're out there and you've never had a problem in your life, you're either on some serious drugs to think that, or let me see, what are the other possibilities? You are deep in denial, you are extremely narcissistic, or you have a host of enablers that hasn't been seen, gosh, since the Queen of Sheba. I have that many people thinking that everything's comfortable. So the rest of us are people that we're in this journey and we have aches and pains and, you know, depressions and anxieties and relationship struggles and all that. And that's what we talk about here. So call me with those and we'll look at it. We're going to begin the program. First of all, I want to say a thank you to our attendees from last week's webinar that we did on divorce recovery. Well, it was a great event. I've heard from so many of you and so excited about the path. I was talking with our staff about, you know, people are headed in one direction and then you just begin to say, I'm going to recover well from this and I'm going to make a couple of shifts, and just that little shift, you know, you take and add time to that, and a year from now, 2 years from now, in totally different worlds. So thank you for all of your comments about that. You can still get that event, by the way, if you go to boundaries.me/recover. It's still available for streaming. And speaking of events, we have started announcing our next one. And many, many, many of you have begun to sign up. And it is one that many, 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 many of us can identify with. And that is the topic of anxiety. So the next live event, 2-hour event, is going to be on December 9th. And sign up for it. You can go to boundaries.me/anxiety to sign up. If you sign up and you can't be there live on the live moment, you can still stream it afterwards. So don't worry about the time frame. That's just when we do it live. There's a few more live interactions that happen, like questions, etc. But sign up for that if you want to. You know, let me give you the sort of overview of this. I'm going to just try to get our arms around all of this topic called anxiety. And then once we understand what are the different types, what type do you have, where does it come from, and what do we do specifically to solve it? Anxiety can be treated. And so we're going to talk about how to get on that path. Go to boundaries.me/anxiety to sign up for that event. Okay, as usual, we take a couple of email questions from our boundaries.me subscriber audience. And you have a pretty interesting one to begin with today. She's going to say she's anonymous, and after reading the question, I can understand that. I've been married to the best God-focused, caring man I've ever met for 2 years. I want to please him in every way that I can. He's very good at giving me affirming feedback about being a great wife to him. He recently opened up to me about one of his sexual fantasies, which involves bringing another woman in the bed. I am happy that he was so honest and open about his desires. A little different response than some wives, parenthetically. Solomon, not everybody be happy about that. Solomon and David both had multiple sex partners in the Bible that they did not call wives. They were called concubines. I feel uncomfortable, really, with the idea and a bit convicted because I do not believe that sex was created to be out of wedlock and the other female would have to have sex out of wedlock to fulfill this fantasy. Not to mention that your husband would also be being adulterous, but we'll save that for later. Question. Well, we did get to a question here. I'm kind of joking about this. Seriously, I do understand that this has got to be a great dilemma, but I am a little surprised that he normalized this. Question: how do I reply to his request without condemning him, while at the same time keeping our intimacy as a couple, even though I do not feel comfortable fulfilling his sexual desire? Okay. Well, let me tell you this before we get into this. I think you get Caller of the Day award for your lack of reactivity to this, and the way in which you have listened to him, and you don't want to condemn him, this and the other. I do agree with you that on a number of things, actually. When you say you're happy, you're so honest about it. So how cool? How cool is it when couples can talk about their fantasies and desires and all of this kind of stuff without being threatened by it, without, as long as it's in the kind of fantasy range, when he's actually saying, I'd like to like purchase a ticket for this and, bring these people in, that's a different issue. But the fact that you can talk about it, I think that's really cool. It's really important. I think in some people's kind of progress in the the whole way in which their sexual relationship develops, because they need to understand each other's desires and fantasies and fears and all that. So it's great that you can talk about it. Great, go great. It's great that you don't want to condemn it. Um, I I am a little surprised that this what do you call him, God focused caring man, would kind of think that this would be okay and justify it by Old Testament concubines. That was a little different deal. But anyway, I'm not trying to condemn. I would say, nice idea, not a good idea. You don't want to do this. You would be an adulterer in that moment. Um, but let's get to the your question. How do you reply? Say, say what you said here. I'm really glad you could share this with me. I actually want to hear more about what the fantasies would sound like, and there's a reason for that. But thank you for telling me. And but I really don't think this is okay. I don't think that this is something that this is how God designed things. So that you just tell him sort of what you said here, and don't worry about setting limits. I'm a little worried about you're maybe a little too adaptive to kind of trying to please him a little too much in a certain, kind of spirit of this. All right. So having said that, let me say this. Um, many, 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 many times, people's sexual fantasies are a really important kind of doorway into what's going on inside of them. Now, I don't know him, but I'm going to just give you one example of this, and this is kind of how you would begin to go explore this. Um, many, many, many times, people will have, for whatever reason, there's dynamic conflicts in either in their heads or in the relationship itself. Okay. So, for example, very, very common for a person to have different parts of themselves that have not been integrated. Okay. So let's say in him, there's a noble, loving, God fearing husband, and the sexuality that's connected to that part of him, is sort of like, metaphorically missionary position, nice guy, right? So that's kind of who that part of him, but he's never really integrated some of his wilder sides, maybe his more passionate sides, maybe his more lustful sides, and those kind of are sitting over here. So instead of integrating those and bringing that all of that to one love object, which means you, he's created the need for two women to match his different splits. Okay, in the old days, you would hear this as kind of the Madonna whore complex that men would have. So they'd have, there's like this one kind of, wifely mother figure in their heads, but then there's, the sexy, lustful, hookerish type, and that's where a lot of affairs would come from as well. Or is his fantasized woman more nurturing, or idealizing and sees him as wonderful? A lot of times with porn addictions, you see people, you learn a lot from their fantasies about what's missing inside. And so he's probably wanting more than one woman to relate to more than one parts of himself. Now, the answer to this also, well, before I get to that, the flip side of that is true that he's kind of got you locked into this little view of who you are, okay? Who's probably the loving, caring wife and this, that, and the other. And he's wanting to bring this other sexual partner in to relate to that partner himself. Well, that should be integrating that view into where he can see you as not only loving, caring wife, but also the lusty, sexual, hot mama, right? So if both of you can begin to integrate all these different sides of you and bring all of those different sides of you into a bed with only two people, then you've got multiple partners in two bodies. You get it? So sometimes sex is nurturing and caring. Sometimes it's playful. Sometimes it's lusty and just sex for sex. Sometimes it's almost a healing reconnection with the two of you. There's a lot of different ways that the sexual relationship can and should be expressed. Okay. But a lot of different ways doesn't mean a lot of different people. And so when people don't do this well, they either have affairs or they have multiple partners or they have web porn fantasies. But the goal is to be integrated. The goal is to be integrated. Go read the Song of Solomon, and you see lots of different expressions there. Okay, so I hope that helps. You guys keep talking about this and bring all your talk to him about your fantasies. I don't know, maybe you I don't know. Maybe you want him to dress up Knights of the Round Table outfit or something. Who knows? But you guys need to talk about the different parts of you. Okay. Um, that'd be a fun program. Do the whole thing on. Maybe we need to have a sex seminar, a 2-hour sex event. Write in if you want a 2-hour sex webinar. No, not one that you can watch, one that you can learn from. And we may do that. Sex therapy issues. Okay. One more quick question. That's an email question. Anonymous. How do parents navigate this time with 3 teens where you feel like you're in a season of walking through an ungrateful desert? Welcome to parenting teenagers. What resource do you suggest for a mom who can't understand the lack of motivation she sees in her children? You can use my first name. Okay, thanks, Susan. Will you tell me, appreciate your asking this because a lot of people can identify with this. Will you tell me when the question, that's when it might be answered? Well, it might be answered now. I guess they've already told you that. So here's the deal. First, let's normalize this. Teenagers are by definition self-centered. Okay, that's for a lot of reasons. Look at life a little bit like this. Okay, you start connecting with a baby, then they pull away from mommy, right? And in the terrible twos, which I like to call the terrific twos, they're what are they doing? They're establishing their independence and they're venturing into the world and they're pushing against you and all of that. Well, then they come back and they kind of reintegrate you and they find out that, how to receive the word no and say the word no and be separate together. And then they go this beautiful period of that we call latency, the school age kids, and you're just the center of their universe and they want to please you and all of this. And then somebody invades their bodies at about 13. I remember when this happened with our oldest daughters in the kitchen one day, and I go, "Who crawled inside of your body? You're like possessed with a different personality." Well, that's actually true, and that's the day it starts, right? So then, what you're kind of doing is that togetherness of the elementary age kids and all of that. They start to do the terrible twos thing again, which is a further individuation, finding out who they are. This is great. You want this to happen. You want it to happen. All right. But you want to also teach them that, yes, you can have independence, but yes, there are also limits that in your grandiosity and your newfound expression of yourself, that you're not God and you're not king of the universe. And you also are going to have to contribute, not just receive. And so, generally speaking, when we're talking about a lack of gratitude, there's a couple of things. One is I want you to look at yourself, how you're interacting with them, and number one, not requiring gratitude. Okay, remember with a toddler, say, what do you say? Thank you, mommy. Okay, well, how about a teenager? When they don't say thank you and they're not appreciating it, I'd pull it back and say, um, do you think that I'm just doing this and will do everything you want? Now, I love giving to you, I love doing things for you, but I don't like not being appreciated for it. You want to say thank you? Okay. Or maybe I'll get tired of doing this. In other words, however you speak to your kids, you say, a thank you would be nice. Or, and then if they're not, you're not getting it there, then it's time to have an offline conversation and say, guys, I want to talk to you about something. Lately I've been feeling a little taken for granted around here. And I'm not playing the martyr, but there's a bunch of stuff I do for y'all. And I'd like to start seeing it being appreciated. I'm not asking for much, but if you go through life and you don't let people know that you appreciate what they do for you, then they're not going to be happy. So let's start practicing that with each other. Okay. So you might have a conversation about it. Now, the other side of this, which is probably more powerful, is the question of, are they really getting limits and consequences? Because usually when you see this grandiose lack of gratitude thing, kids are being enabled too much and they're not learning to respect reality. I give the example, a lot of times with the parents that keep saying, you need to go do your homework. You need to go do your chores. Get off that couch. Stop playing those video games. You need to go in the backyard and you need to go do this and you need to do your homework and you need to finish that assignment. And they keep saying this you need thing. And what I often say to parents is stop lying to your kids. And they go, what? I go, because they don't need to do that. Well, yes, they do. They got homework assignment. I go, well, apparently they don't need to do it, do they? Because they're not doing it. They don't feel one iota of need to clean up their room, one iota of need to do their chores, one iota of need to do their homework. All they need at the moment is to get this nagging parent out of their face. That's what they feel. But when you begin to say, okay, guys, off of the video games, I want you to go finish your homework, bring it down to me when you're done, or I want you to go finish chores and that I gave you, and the backyard's got to be picked up, this, that, and the other. And then when you're done, come tell me, and I'll come inspect that. And if it's all done, great, you can back to your video games. But if it's not, then the video games are going in the closet for a week, or you're going to not be able to A, B, C, or D. And then when they feel those limits, all of a sudden, what just changed? They feel like I need to go do my chores, because if I don't do my chores, then something's going to happen that I don't like. And now you've transferred the need onto their shoulders. Now, watch the chemistry of this. We're talking about grandiose, ungrateful arrogance, right? Do you hear any need in that personality? No, you just hear demand. See, a demand and a need are very different. Demand means you owe me this. A need means I really need help. I really need something. And when a need gets met, we feel grateful. Well, you start that by having them have needs for their own selves. That's a sentence. They need their own selves to start performing. And they don't do that without really, really high expectations and firm limits and significant consequences mixed in with a lot of warmth. Put all that together, and you're going to have some ups and downs, and kids aren't always, they're just not. They're not grateful at this age. I mean, it's like batteries not included when they come from the factory. But as you have good limits and requirements, then they learn they're not going to get all those privileges. They're not going to get all that food. They're not going to get all this stuff if they don't act in a certain way. So then they become really grateful, right? One more example. How about getting to dinner on time? Okay. A lot of teenagers just want to treat this as a drive through, right? You say, you know what? Dinner time's at 6:30. That's when the food will be there. Come join us. All right. If they're late, you've already started. You don't nag them 100 times. If you're done, you put it all up, and they're going, "Where? Well, you missed it. You know, make yourself a sandwich, I guess. But I'm going to watch my Netflix or whatever. We eat again in the morning. You can try again then." Okay, so then they start to learn this whole thing doesn't revolve around me. You guys are going to go on with the program, even if I don't show up on time, and I'm going to be left out in the rain. Well, then they start to be a little different in the way they approach this. They've got to adapt to you versus you adapting them. So that's a few things about that. In terms of resources, I'd encourage you, go to boundaries.me, become a subscriber. There's all sorts of courses, just like we just talked about, but in expanded form. Okay, here is our number, 844-940-2774, 844-940-2774, and call in to get on the program. And you have those limits, and then they actually become really fun people to be around. Really fun people to be around. But you got to have the limits. And expect the bad behavior. I'm a parent, right? I got two girls, and they're 18 and 20 now. But when they were going through this, that's just, you got to expect this. But you got to have good limits and consequences. I was going through some stuff the other day, and I found a note that my girls had written me. That was an apology. We were going on vacation, I think, one time at the time, and they were just being, a little rowdy on the plane, and I kept saying, "Okay, girls, quiet down, quiet down, quiet down." And then I heard myself saying this more than twice, and I don't like saying anything more than twice. And so, whatever they were watching or whatever it was, it all went away. And I told them, when we got to where we were going, don't expect to go swimming that afternoon or whatever it was, whatever the consequence was. And anyway, we get there, and that night, underneath the door, I find an apology letter that they had written, and they got it, but they only got it because they learned that kind of behavior is not tolerated. Now, parents, remember this one sentence: you will get what you tolerate. You'll get what you tolerate. Okay, so no tolerance for selfishness. All righty. So let's go to the phones. We're going to talk to Roxanne, who's calling us. I don't know where you're calling from. Idaho. Hi, Roxanne. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Dr. Cloud. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too. Tell me how I can help you.
So how you can help me today? I have been working on this for a number of months now, and I kind of keep coming to a different conclusion, and so it's kind of keeping me stuck. I am trying to work on a plan for healing. I've had ongoing emotional problems, and it's been a real problem for attachment, bonding, and relationships. I emotionally isolate pretty consistently, but it's
How old
just
are
been
you?
within the last few years. I'm 35.
35? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's only been in the
I've been
last
single
few
this whole
years that
time.
what?
In the last few years, I'll say it's kind of escalated in terms of the degree of isolation and the interruption in my ability to work. And it took me a long time to kind of acknowledge to myself that I was having regular panic attacks daily, and particularly associated with anything social at all. And it was so draining to me that I would kind of just gather myself by just being alone. With them.
So if I can understand this right, you're kind of floating along okay, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to go do some kind of social event, then you start to get panicky, and then you say, well, I'm not going to do that, and you withdraw and alone, and then the anxiety goes down. Is that what happens?
Yes, and it's with all kinds of relationships, but I'll say the biggest triggers are anybody I'm living with, but also any kind of like work situation. To kind of paint a little bit more context, so I'll say also within the last few years, I started getting a little bit more educated about dissociation, and I started seeing a therapist that helped me kind of evaluate that, and we didn't come to any firm conclusions, but it did start to make more sense to me in terms of my experience. Like it feels like the level of internal conflict I feel with parts of myself, and then those parts coming out in situations I really don't want them to, because they're like the weakest or the most vulnerable.
Oh, what would one of those parts look like, and when would it come
out? Kind of like really, really needy childlike parts coming out in adult relationships or in work situations. Or particularly, I guess more what would happen in a work situation.
What does it look like? Because sometimes people, they'll want somebody to, give me a drink of water, and they say, I'm so needy, I shouldn't ask that, but other times,
right.
I mean, they're literally crying on the floor, holding somebody's ankle, don't leave me. So where are we talking about
okay.
on that continuum?
So mine doesn't look like that. I'll say, I think what it looks like is it looks like an inappropriate, premature, like grasping for attachment. And sometimes in my head, I am not, this feels horrible to say this. So I'm a Christian. I'm very committed to, I want to be a good person. I want to be moral and respectful. And I find myself like fantasizing that I have like more of like I'll have friends, their husbands. I'm like feeling more emotionally like wanting them, if that makes sense. And but I'll find myself like wanting to like reach out and express like physical affection and things. And I just feel completely confused. And I
like
so
physical affection, physical affection. You said like childlike, needy, like want daddy to hug me and hold me, this and another, or more adult sexual fantasies.
More adult sexual kind of things, but in an adult relationship. So my most recent adult relationship, it was weird because those two things were blended. So we were like,
and a lot of times
way too fast in the adult. Yeah.
You and somebody's husband were going way too fast?
No. It was me, and he was a single guy. We were dating. We went way too fast physically and emotionally inside of the relationship. I was kind of acting like I was so exceptionally passive and panicked the whole time that I didn't. It was almost like on the inside, I felt like I was frozen. And so if he did something that I didn't want, I didn't feel like I could say no. And it wasn't anything he did that made me feel that way. He wasn't abusive. It was something on the inside that was like, no, Michelle, you can't say no.
Okay. Let me ask you something. Very much so. What you've described, there's several pathways, to getting there. But one of the things I have to ask is there, because you mentioned dissociation, you mentioned these parts, and then you mentioned being frozen. All of those make me wonder, is there any kind of trauma that you've never dealt with? Any kind of sexual trauma? Any other kind of physical trauma?
I don't remember it. And the thing is I just started having dreams as an adult that I was having sexual encounters with one of my parents, but I don't remember anything. I just started having dreams.
Okay. And you mentioned therapy, well, let me ask another question.
Hmm.
Apart from the trauma, um, was there a lot of, let's call it deprivation slash abandonment in your history, where somebody, you just
Yes,
didn't have
very
constant
much.
love? Yeah.
Very much.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
my mom was so unavailable, and my dad was completely unavailable as well.
okay. All right. So let's say a little kid comes into the, I mean, this is not rocket science, right? Little kid comes
Right.
into the earth, and what are they like? They're needy, right?
Hmm.
And so they really are attachment seeking, and exactly like you've described. Now I'm going to say something to you, that I want you to hear here. That is your most valuable part, this neediness.
Hmm.
It's not how you feel about it, probably, right?
It feels important. It just feels like I don't know. It's like I have, it feels like I have this family of people inside of me that all have different needs, and I don't know where to take them. And I don't
Awesome.
know how to I don't know how to organize my life so that that's possible. Like I try to
Well,
go to
why
work and I don't know, like I'm, yeah.
don't Susan, I'm sorry, Roxanne. Um, you would be an absolute joy to work with because you can articulate this, you can
Thank
see
you.
you got this family of people, and what a good therapist would do. I mean, what you kind of need in your life, you kind of need a little bit of a daycare center, right? Where you can bring all these
Yeah.
kids in with all their different parts and begin to express those. Because right now you're divided into different parts. That's normal, but what needs to happen is for all those parts to become integrated, where you have
Hmm.
different moods and expressions and you can flow in and out of them, this, that, and the other. Right now they're segmented. And they're segmented because they
Yeah.
basically never had some basic needs met and never been able to express and this, that, and the other. So here's what I would suggest to you. Are you in therapy now?
It just got started. Yes.
Okay, good. Then that's a good thing. So you're in the right place. If your therapist does your therapist understand all the stuff that you've expressed to me?
I'm kind of in the process of evaluating how comfortable I feel with her. So, or how well it seems like she's able to appreciate. We only met twice, and she suggested that she thought I might be borderline, but I asked her about complex trauma and dissociation, and she said that she just takes a lot more time to diagnose something like that.
Why did she tell you were borderline? Because you have abandonment issues?
Um, I think because I think I was describing, see, part of this situation too is I have memory problems, and I'm sure you understand that. I think I was
Memory, is that what you said?
describing,
Did you say
I
memory?
have memory problems. Yes.
Do
um,
you
so I think I was describing, go ahead.
do you lose do you lose segments of time?
In
Or you don't
my,
know?
it'll take me a long time to remember what I did at a certain time. And then, so I might not lose all of what I did, but I'll lose a lot of the details. So I'll be able to tell you
Okay.
very vaguely, but it
But
doesn't
you
really feel
don't,
like I was there.
okay. All right. Well, I
Does
would,
that make sense?
yeah, but that could be detachment as well. What I was wondering about is you truly dissociate and go into what's called a fugue state, which happens with a
Okay.
lot of trauma people. So I would continue to talk to her about this and try to get an understanding if you guys are a good fit, and how she's going to treat all this. But everything you're describing
Yeah.
is very. I just want you to be in therapy and begin to. What's happening is you're going to take all these different parts of you and you're going to bring them into the room, right? And
Mhm.
you're going. That's the process by which all this stuff gets healed. Now, then what you're going to have to do, and this
Mhm.
sounds a little cheesy, but you know, when you go to work, you're going to have to, sort of say to the kids, okay, my little parts can talk to my therapist about this. I got to show up and produce a report here, right? So you're integrating all this, but you're not in conflict. And so I would say, based on what you've said, that the best thing for you is in a really good therapeutic relationship with somebody who really understands this and can help you to integrate it. I would suggest one more thing, um,
Hmm.
because what have I said here? I've tried to normalize it for you, and what's got to happen for
Hmm.
this, and can happen and will happen, I think, is the way you can articulate it, because you're very observant, you're containing it, you're not acting it out really, but as you put expression to this, it's going to all integrate. But you've got some real needs that need to be met and healed through a good healing environment. And so I would
Hmm.
really, really focus on those things and make sure you got the right therapist and you guys can talk about that and just continue down the path. Now, the panic attack side of this, it's going to be treated by your therapist, but also if it's social anxiety, as you're doing all this, I would encourage you to the best you can. We're going to have an online anxiety event coming up on December 9th.
Hmm.
That one of the worst things that you can do with social fears and other things like that, one of the worst things that you can do is kind of give in to them and avoid them, because it reinforces the anxiety patterns in the brain. And so, as best you
Hmm.
can, find strategies to lean into those and continue to go into them. And then you're going to probably find them diminish. Okay. Oh, I was going to
Can
tell
I
you one
ask one
more
more quick
thing.
question?
Yeah, if it goes fast, so I got some other people, but I'm going to tell you one more thing. If you go to my book, Changes That
Uh,
Heal, um, the
yes,
first
I'm 100
section
pages
in,
into that right now.
okay, do you remember me talking about, did you read the time section?
Yes,
Have you read that yet? What did I say? That
yes, it's excellent.
sometimes parts of yourself can be removed from the experience of time, so they can't really grow up
Hmm.
and they become frozen in time, like childhood trauma
Hmm.
or childhood development, and they've got to be reintegrated into the experience of time. And that's what I'm suggesting here. So I'd go back and read that
Okay,
in light of our conversation. Okay.
excellent. Okay, so here's my quick question for you. Structure-wise, as I'm structuring a path for healing, it feels to me like one therapy session a week might not really work. I feel like I might need more structure, more input than that. Do you
Way, way,
have
way, way,
thoughts
way,
for me?
way, 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 way agree with you. I totally agree with you. I think you need more than that.
Okay. What are some ways that I could do that? Because
Just
I don't really know what to do.
well, I mean, it's not unusual for people to go to individual therapy um, several times a week, especially in dealing with dissociation and stuff like that. But I would also want you in a group. I
Okay.
think that that would
Okay.
be very, very helpful, as well as a nice support system that supports you in all of this. Okay,
Okay.
and
Okay.
that's
Thank you
it.
so much for
All
your
right,
time. I appreciate it.
Roxanne, pleasure to talk to you. I hope this works out well for you. Thanks for your call. You know, a lot of times people will find themselves experiencing these parts of themselves. They go, where did that come from? Where did that come from? Well, it came from inside of you, and it's generally speaking, when you experience those, you're not supposed to, slap it down. You're supposed to integrate it and welcome it and mature it. We all have unresolved, in you can almost say there's kind of three columns to this: unresolved trauma or hurts that have just kind of been in the waiting room. Okay, think of you go to the doctor's office. Well, good stuff happens in the doctor's office, but sometimes you're in the waiting room forever before they can fix this. Well, sometimes your life, since you were traumatized in childhood, you kind of been in the waiting room, waiting in the doctor's office. And the doctor's office is going to be some kind of therapeutic or healing relationship, with professionals and probably friends and spiritual community. And so when they're there, then you got to bring that part of you out of the waiting room. Well, a lot of times people stay in conflict with these parts of themselves. They just kind of spank them down and say, shut up. I shouldn't be that way. I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't be this needy. I should. Stop shoulding on yourself and bring that part of you into a healing expression, and it can grow up. So sometimes it's trauma, sometimes it's need, sometimes it's just lack of experience. There were parts of you that didn't get to experience certain developmental stages of life, And in the lack of experience, then it didn't get integrated, couldn't grow up. Not a problem. Not a problem. Just bring them into a good experience now, and then they can be healed. Okay, let's go back to the phones. We're going to talk to Lynn, who's calling us from, looks like Virginia. Lynn, welcome to the Dr. Cloud Show.
Well, thank you, and it's a privilege to be able to speak with you.
I'm glad you're here. How can I help you?
I have trying to encourage and help my sister in keeping a relationship with her, which I have not seen her or spoke verbally. Last spoke verbally to her in July, and she hung up on me. And I haven't seen her since the day after Thanksgiving last year. But my mother passed away in 2016. We got some inheritance. She's a chemist with a master's degree, but she
And what is the age difference?
had a
Who's the older? Who's the younger? How old are you guys?
I'm the older, and I'm 57, and she is 48. And she was always maintained kind of bad relationships. We have very diverse personalities and religious beliefs. I'm a Christian, but she got the money, her inheritance. We got the exact same thing, other than me being a little bit more for being the executor. And she went through all her money. I saw it coming. She lost her job.
Do you mind me asking how much she went through and what period of time?
A large amount of money. I don't want to put dollar signs out there.
But a life altering amount of money.
Over 6 digits. Let's say that. But it didn't make us independently wealthy, or I wouldn't still be working.
Okay. But enough to where it was significant for her to burn through it in a short amount of time when she didn't need to.
Oh, absolutely. She hasn't worked now for 3 years, and now she's broke. And I did loan her some money.
She hasn't worked because she was living off this inheritance and said, I don't want to go to work if I got this money.
Yes.
That's the only reason she's not working.
No, she has substance abuse issues. So I think that's why she can't go back to work. Yeah.
Well, I mean, is she on heroin? What is she on?
She's blaming me. She's saying now everything's my fault that she's in the boat that she's in, and
it's your fault. Why? What did you do to her that wrecked her life that was so terrible that it would cause her to take all of her money and spend it and not pay attention to keeping a budget and being a responsible person? What was it you did, Lynn?
I didn't. I tried to give her a little bit of insight, and she got mad when I knew in my head that she was running out, and I suggested that she get a job, and she told me she would get one when she wanted, and I was like, it can take you 6 months to get a job. And then the 6 months rolled around and she didn't have a job, and then she called me begging for money, and I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt and
what doubt?
Supported her somewhat for 10 months against a lot of people's recommendations.
What?
Not fully. I helped
I don't care
keep
if it
her
was
from being homeless.
Why?
That's what she says now. Because I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt that she could get back on her feet.
Stop. Just stop, because I want everybody to hear this. Where was the doubt? What doubt? Benefit of what doubt? What did you doubt?
I just hope she would not end up homeless, but that's where it's going.
Well, wait a minute. You used the term, I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. What doubt? What were you doubting?
Her word, I guess, because she told me she was going to do it, and I wanted to believe her.
She was going to do what?
That she was going to get back on her feet and to stay clean.
Okay, all right, but she didn't present a plan or any proof of that or anything. Okay, all right, I got it.
No.
Okay, so what is your? I think I got the picture. What is the question?
She is saying that she has no family and that I have deserted her. But when I try to interact with her, she gets. I don't know how to
Lynn,
interact with her. I can't
Lynn,
say anything.
Lynn,
Yes.
Lynn, you supported her for
Yes,
10
sir.
months. The last time you talked to her, she hung up on you. Okay. And she's
Right.
telling you that her family has deserted her. Do you
Yes,
understand how out of touch with reality that is?
I do.
You okay,
And
so
I,
what's your
I,
question? Give me a question.
I guess I want to know how I can get her to get help. I've read your books. I joined boundaries.com.
Okay.
I've been to Celebrate
Boundaries.me.
Recovery for,
And
yes, yes, boundaries.me.
what would all that tell you? How can you get somebody to get help? Well, people get help when they realize that they need help. And as long as somebody is enabling them to not have to get help, then they're able to float through many, many people, many, many years. And so I think the best way, generally speaking, I don't know all the particulars of this, you should go talk to, somebody. You can put the whole thing out there, maybe a good counselor or especially a good substance abuse counselor, or go to Al-Anon, for example. But she is going to get help when she realizes that you're not going to enable this anymore, right? And so what I would say to her is, look, sis, um, I I've tried to help you the best I know how. Apparently, that's A, not been helpful to you, and B, um, not really appreciated. You don't find it helpful either. So since it's not really helping, and you don't you don't feel like it's helping, then I'm not going to help in that way anymore. Okay. I do want to be a good sister to you, and I do want to help you, but here is the way that I will be glad to help you. If you decide that you would like to get sober first and get into recovery and get your life together, then I will be glad to even go with you to a recovery meeting, or I would be glad to go with you, help you find a good, rehab place or whatever it is, however she's going to go about this. But I will not continue to be blamed for this, or continue to give you money without you, you know, working. You got a master's degree. You should be working. So that's the way I would help her. I would offer help to become a bridge to help. Does that help?
Yes, it does. And I guess it's just, I've tried to do that, and she says that she doesn't need that type of help. So I guess it's
Then
just
great.
going to
Great,
remain
sis. Great,
unresolved.
sis.
I don't,
Great, sis.
and
If
just
you
let
don't,
go.
exactly. Yeah, gosh, I'm so glad you don't need help. That's really good to hear. I don't believe it, but if you don't need help and that's true, then I guess you don't need help. So have a nice day. I mean, you follow
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I do.
She,
But yeah, she's
okay.
projecting that it's going to be my fault if she becomes homeless, which is very likely to happen. I'm not exaggerating. She's liable
Hey,
to end up
hey,
in the homeless.
hey, I've been working with homeless shelters for 30 years. And sometimes
Okay.
when somebody finally hits the street and they say, I got to get sober, a lot of times it is cause, secondary to substance problems. And they say, you know what? I'm going to go. Where does she live, by the way? Well, what state are you in? Where does she live?
She's 2 hours from me. She's actually in North Carolina.
Okay. Well, there's probably some good, inner city mission there, homeless mission, whatever. And they always, generally, the good ones, they treat substance abuse as part of it. And I can't tell you how many people I've seen, they finally realize I need to get sober, and they go to a good mission a lot of times, a homeless shelter or mission or whatever, and they get in the program, they start to call the Salvation Army or others. They start to, turn their lives around. And this can happen, but it never happens till they stop blaming and realize they got a problem. Okay. So yes,
Okay.
it may, and you got to be ready for this. It may remain unresolved. As long as she's blaming and not saying that she needs help, then it's probably likely to stay unresolved. So also the other thing I would suggest to you, and thank you for your call, I got to move on, but the other thing I would suggest to you is that you go to a good Al-Anon meeting or back to Celebrate Recovery. Go to boundaries.me. You said you subscribe to boundaries.me, and there's a lot of things on there. When you look up enabling codependency, dealing with addicts, all those topics are right there on boundaries.me. But I think you need some support as well. You need a group around you. Okay. Let's see here. What do we got? Hold on 1 second. I gotta see who's on the line here. Ooh. Poor Natalia. I read your question here. People are putting pressure on you. Natalia, welcome to the program.
Hi, Dr. Cloud. Thank you so much for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I am calling because, it's hard to explain it. I feel like I am in a lose-lose situation right now where I am going to receive my parents for the holidays, and also at the same time, my aunt, who has been a person who has created many conflicts in our family, many problems, financial and many kind of problems. She's going to come over too, but she's going to stay at another relative's house who is also in town.
Okay, so your parents, when you say family, you mean your parents are coming over and one of your parents is going to bring this sister?
Yes, my mom is going to bring her sister, but her sister is not going to stay with me. She's going to stay with another relative who is also in town, a few miles away.
So what's the problem and what's the question? How old are you, first of all?
I am 37 years old.
37. Okay, so your parents. Got it. All right.
Yeah.
So what's the question? Great big happy Thanksgiving gathering about to happen. Right? Looking forward to the holidays.
I feel like I have to. Oh, sorry to interrupt. I feel like I have to invite my aunt and my uncle over to my house because that is what is expected of me. And since they have created so many problems with lies and things have been said behind my back, this has created problems with other relatives who also started being aggressive with me. I feel like if I don't invite them over to see the house, to eat or something, that this will be used against me. If I do invite them over, I do feel like my aunt will still be passive-aggressive, make comments, just kind of look around my house and talk bad about it behind my back. So I feel like I can't win. And I don't know what should I do. Should I have them over and risk, because I know that I am going to see them eventually, so that I can't escape that. But my question is, should I have them over and just make sure that, it's not used against me if I don't? Or should I not have them over and have that used against me?
Well, how
because...
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me try to understand something here. The aunt, yes. It sounds like is the real perpetrator, but it sounds like she's been able to turn these other family members against you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. This is a generational issue. She has had a lot of, she has always hated my mom for no reason, and so it continued with me and my sister.
Okay, so let me do the obvious thing here. If I'm looking at this, and your parents are coming, your mom's going to come, your mom and dad are going to come stay with you. Is that right, for the holidays?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
so Does your mom see her sister as a problem?
Oh, she knows this 100%, but it's not my mom that is actually bringing her over. They just come over as much as they can. I feel like I might be paranoid, but sometimes I feel like they're after me, like they're just chasing me because they come over like through impossible situations like now with
Who's they?
everything that
Who's
is going
they?
on.
Who's they? Who's they? Who's
My
they?
aunt and my uncle. I
Oh,
just
this
feel like they
woman
just
already, stop. This woman already comes to your house?
she comes over to town to stay with my other relatives.
No,
But it's
I'm
like no
talking
matter
about
how far I move away, they
just
always try
stop.
to come
Stop, stop,
over
stop,
as
stop.
much
Well,
as they
stop.
can.
Stop, 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 stop. Sorry, I can't get your attention with the internet here. Look, I'm asking a simple question. Does your mom understand that this woman creates a nightmare for you?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so your mom is coming to visit. Here's what I would do.
Yes.
Mom, I'm really glad you're coming over for Thanksgiving and this, that, and the other. Every time Aunt so and so comes over, it doesn't go well. Okay. All right. But if I don't ask her over, then everybody else is going to be upset. Okay. So
Yeah.
I got to make a hard call here, Mom. Um, I don't really want her here, but if she is going to come, then I want you to tell me, since you're the one that wants to invite her, I want you to tell me how you're going to deal with her. Because if she comes, and I'm doing all this strategically, so maybe I can work out stuff with the rest of the family, which I'm not signing off on either. I don't know if they're really workable. But Mom, if you want her to come, then you got to tell me how you're going to deal with her, because I don't want to deal with her.
Yeah. My mom is a part of the problem in a way because I feel like we are all. It's an entangled situation where the
Okay,
whole
then stop.
family
Just stop, stop, stop,
entangled.
stop, 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 stop. So what you're saying is, but I can't do that because Mom. Okay, Natalia, you gotta. You're just gonna have to make a hard call here. Okay,
Okay.
whenever when you say you got a lose situation, the only
Yeah.
reason that I can think of that you said you're going to have this passive aggressive woman over, which who cares about people being passive? You just ignore them, right? You don't give her that much power. But if you're going to do that, the only reason you would do that is because you have a calculated thought, it sounds like, that there's a
Yeah.
possibility that this whole other group that turns against you could be won over and somehow become a great happy family, and you're going to avoid this one misstep to not screw up that strategy. Okay, so here's the point. You better have a really good calculation that inviting your aunt over is going to really be effective in making all of these other relationships workable going forward. Because that's the only reason you're doing this. Otherwise, you'd say, no, I don't want her
I do
here.
it
It's
for
a lousy
everybody else.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I do it because I don't want to hurt. I don't want to hurt my relationship with everybody else
Okay, but
more than
stop,
she
stop.
already has.
Listen to me though. Listen. What are the chances that those relationships are going to be good? Are do you have are these the kind of people that you can even work something out with if you do this strategic step? I get the step. You want to have her over so it doesn't screw up these relationships and you can get to a good place with them. Is that even possible? Because a lot of times the behavior you're describing that people do, we're talking about unworkable situations. So if you're going to spend this enormous investment to make these other relationships work, is that even going to work?
Um, it's. I don't wanna. I don't wanna go into the game of telling people the truth of the
Okay,
matter
well
because I feel like if I
then
defend
Natalia, I
myself,
can't. Then if you're not going to work things out with them and you're just trying to avoid a rainstorm confirm with what you've told me, then if avoiding all of that is your highest priority, then I guess the aunt comes over and you just put on your earmuffs and ignore all of her passive aggressive stuff and realize, okay, I'm going through this horrible day because I don't want to upset these people. And if that's the way you want to live, then in this whatever reasons, and I'm sure there's complicated reasons for it, but if you're going to do it, protect yourself that day. Okay? Don't give her the
Do you
power to
think that I
upset
could
you.
get away with saying no? Just don't come over and not have that not being used against me?
I just suggested that 10 ways to Sunday, and every time you kept coming back at me and saying, no, that won't work. So don't ask me. I mean, you know these people. I don't. You follow me?
Okay.
I mean, if I ask you, are they reasonable people? Okay. If they are, then maybe your mom talks to them ahead of time. Maybe you talk to them ahead of time. Maybe if they're reasonable, then you don't invite her. And when the flack comes, you tell them then, you know what, I couldn't invite her because here's what goes on. I hope you understand that. If they're reasonable, that's what I was asking you. But if they're not,
Right.
then you're just flying through combat zone here, and I guess you're going to have to just sort of, but don't let her ruin it for you. Ignore her when she makes her passive aggressive comments. Say, yeah, well, that's what it looks. That's what my couch looks like. You know, some more beets with your turkey there, Aunt Lulu. You follow me? You just don't give her that much power.
Yes. Okay.
But
Thank you so much.
Ultimately, here's what I'm worried about, and then I got to go here. I think that sometimes you just have to ask yourself, why am I continuing to try to please unpleasable people? And you may have to decide, just tell your mom, you know, I just don't want to be around Aunt so and so. All she does is put me down. All she does is, whatever it is she does, all she does is cause. And you, mom, you can continue to have that in your life if you want it, but I don't want it in my life. Okay. And if everybody's going to be upset with me because I don't want that in my life, then so be it. And that may be the path you go because it doesn't sound like, I mean, I don't hear for sure that all these people are really going to be understanding. It sounds like what you're telling me is a good chance they want you to be the sacrificial lamb for your aunt's divisiveness. And ultimately, Natalia, that is going to be destructive to you and your family long term. And I love to see things reconciled. And I hope that they would sit down and listen to you and reconcile. But sometimes that's not an option. And sometimes people have to say, you know what, until you guys can understand this, then I guess we can't be together. Sometimes, as one of my favorite verses says in Ecclesiastes, there's a time to embrace and there's a time to refrain from embracing. And if people are abusing you and making life miserable for you, unless you put up with being abused, then it may be a time to refrain from embracing. Okay, thanks for your call. I love the way that Natalia framed that. And I hope you're still listening. And that is that you said you are in a lose-lose situation. Okay. Now, when we're in a lose-lose situation, and we've already decided that, many times, sometimes many times, the way to deal with a lose-lose is to not to pick one of the lose-lose. Is to pick a third option. And the third option means you pick an option that you will gain something from because you've already told me you're going to lose over here. So if you say, okay, I'm not going to put up with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to be with some people that actually care about me, that actually listen to me, and this, that, and the other. And then, since I'm going to lose anyway, well, then I've actually gained something. Okay? Or you look at the lose-lose and you pick the lesser of the losses. But ultimately, I would hope better for you than it go that way. Your mom's got to deal with this at some point too. Okay, guys, looking at the clock here, and we are once again out of time. Thank you to my callers today, our callers, I should say, for this community. You open yourselves up and you share with us. You know, it's really, really tough stuff, and you give us things to think about in our own lives. And I think that all of us can identify with, like Natalia, having problematic relatives, extended families, feeling like you're in a lose lose, you know, or like, you know, Roxanne was talking about, you had all these unresolved childhood parts, or, you know, a sister that Lynn had that, you know, won't face her problems and blames you for their life. Wow, we can all identify somewhere with some of that, even if it's not exactly the same context with those feelings. So thank you for your calls, and thank you for on the various forums how you're supporting each other: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I love to see you doing that. Thank you for your kind comments to me. And by the way, share the program with your friends. They can get it also as a podcast. It's called boundaries.me as a podcast, wherever they get their podcast. But please share the links, share the program with your friends and family, and we can continue to build an audience. And also, two suggestions to you. One is, if you struggle from anxiety, we're having a 2-hour webinar on overcoming anxiety. And I'm going to talk about where it comes from, the different types, why maybe what you've tried hasn't worked for the type that you have, what kind of help there is available, what are some active steps and suggestions that you can take from that day to begin to go change this grip that fear and anxiety has had on your life. And that's coming up on December 9th. You can go to boundaries.me/anxiety to sign up for that. And if you can't see it live on that day, if you sign up for it, you'll be able to stream it afterwards at your leisure. And then also boundaries.me/recover, you can still get the divorce recovery event that we had last week. And always, always, always remind you, go to boundaries.me and just check it out, become a subscriber. And there's lots and lots of info there. Okay, it's good to be with you guys, and we will be here, I think, tomorrow at our regular time. It looks like, yes, regular time tomorrow, which is 10 a.m. Pacific. So 12 Central, 1 Eastern, and wherever you find yourself on the planet, or you can view the show 24/7 on the web. Okay, guys, enjoy being with you, and I'll see you